This is the Realistic Minimus 7 speaker, and this has a bona fide cult following. It's literally one of the easiest vintage bookshelf speakers to find at a thrift store, and I'm going to show you step by step how to turn one of these into a guitar amplifier that sounds, and this feels weird saying this, just as good, if not better, than a Marshall MG15. Stick around, and I think you will be just as shocked as I was. Materials will be linked in the description for everybody to follow along with at home, and enjoy. So it really sucks that one of these broke, but I've actually kind of always wanted to turn one of these into a guitar amplifier, to be honest, so it kind of worked out. I started by removing the tweeter, which had actually shattered, I guess from being 40 years old, but I'm going to go ahead and hang on to this tweeter because this is actually a very high quality tweeter and just needs a new plate. Go ahead and shake some of the rest of the stuff out of there. I then went ahead and removed the main driver, the woofer, and this is what we're going to be using because this is high quality. Next, out with the polyfill, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull out this crossover, which I'm going to be hanging on to. I'm going to try to keep this as much as possible to where I can revert it back to original state if I want to. And now we're just kind of left with this empty shell, and I really like the rubber gasketing that they have on the front. That's going to help a lot. But now we're going to go ahead and start with cutting out the plexiglass for the front, and I have a really good idea for it, which you've already seen. But to do this, I just bought some sheet acrylic off of Amazon, and I pretty much measured out the dimensions of what the tweeter plate was, and I figured the way to cut it for me was to scribe it, and that is pretty much just you draw a straight line and then you cut that straight line over and over and over with, they do have a special kind of tool to use to do this, but I really just used a regular razor knife, and yeah, it kind of worked out pretty good. Go ahead and clamp down your straight edge. For the first initial cut, I like to use a straight edge that is metal because it won't gouge into it and mess up your initial cut. But do that 300,000 times, cut it over and over. And then, as you can see there, I actually turned it around and used the bigger piece to push down on. When you do that, you actually spread out the force a lot more evenly, and as you can see, it's a pretty clean cut that with a little bit of love afterwards will come right out. Now for the last cut, which I just kind of repeated, same thing, and scribed it 357,000 more times, and did the exact same thing. This time I turned it around and reclamped it so that I had the larger area out, towards me, so that's what I was pushing on to actually make that cut. This is actually the exact same way how you cut glass, and it actually turned out pretty good, nice and straight, and with a little bit of love, like I said afterwards, it's going to be able to come right back. One thing I did have to do was the bottom was going to be squared off, but the top I kind of had to draw in some little notches so I can round it off. And this is what I used from Gator. It's a nice little sanding block that's foam, and it came with 3 different types of, I think it was 80, 120, and 220 sandpaper with it. And after about, I'd say maybe 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour, the result from doing that was absolutely amazing and brought down the edge very nice. And as you can see, I was able to round it off just about perfectly. And the thing here was to make sure that it actually fit inside of the grill, and as well as, it had to place exactly perfectly on where the tweeter plate was. And to make this happen, I actually took the tweeter plate itself and used it as a template, and made my holes with it. And to cut this, I watched online, and it said that pretty much the best thing to use was a step bit like this, and that actually worked out pretty well. And I also saw that if you use some Dawn dish soap, it makes your cuts a lot cleaner. So I wanted to believe it, so I decided to use it. I also used the plate itself as kind of a template just to kind of get them started. And when I initially went in to start cutting, man, it actually cut so well. The unibit like this is the way to go. I would definitely recommend. The other thing that it did was it kind of tapered the hole so that it would hold the fastener in there. And right here I'm showing you that I basically made a little jig by pre-drilling a little hole, and kind of helped me to figure out what depth I needed to drill without going too far. And now my favorite part, and I think the most satisfying part, was taking off the adhesive backing. And doing this just really lets you see how good of a job that I think that I did. Another thing I see often is people will take that adhesive backing off first before they're done with all their cuts. I would recommend not doing that, because then it will turn out just as good as this. Now all I had to do was follow my first plan, which was to just frost this piece of acrylic. And obviously, as you can tell, I actually took it one step further. Make sure to stick around, because in the next video, I'm going to show you how I actually came up with that kind of cracked finish. And now there was one more piece of acrylic to cut, and that was for the back plate. I pretty much just did the exact same thing again, scribed it 3 million times, and then clamped it with a harder straight edge, and then just kind of did it that way, and it actually worked out really well. And this is actually going to cover up the hole in the back where the speaker plugs were, as well as the crossover. Next, I just kind of marked out 2 arbitrary spots on the back. One was going to be for the volume potentiometer, which will also hold the amplifier board, and then on the other side I had to have a spot for the jack. To get things started, I just used a regular Phillips screwdriver to kind of make a pilot hole, or something to kind of help me get started. After that, I felt since I needed an 8mm hole and a 9.5mm hole, I would just use my step bit, as I could use the 3/8 and the 5/16 steps to achieve the exact hole that I wanted. And of course, I had to get some slow-mo shots. So now we were pretty much ready to go ahead and start with the circuitry. Got our jack, got our resistor, which is 270 ohms, got our speaker wires, which I took from the old unit, and I'm going to use a UV LED to get that pink fluorescent glowing. And then we have pretty much the star of the show, the amplifier board from CB Getty. This is awesome because it's pre-wired with everything that you're going to need to hook up. The input, the speaker, the LED, as well as the battery, which actually already has a plug on it. So to get started, we're going to be starting with the jack, and you will notice that on the jack here, there is a long pin and there's a short pin. With this jack, as well as with the LED and a lot of electronic components, the longer leg is usually the positive, or the anode, and then the shorter one is usually the negative, and it is no different with this. So I started by making a couple of hooks in the end of the wire for the jack, and tinned my tip on my soldering iron, and then quickly got to work on that, starting with the ground, and then I went to the positive lead. Let that set up and cool down, and now we're going to work on the speaker lead. For this, I took some heat shrink tubing and kind of put it on the wires first. Then now I can take the positive wire, which came from the speaker wire, and kind of just twist them both together, and then follow suit with the ground. And then what I did, because I knew these wires were a little bit older, I actually threw some flux on them just to make the solder flow a little bit better, which it actually did help pretty good, but I should have had this clamped down because it was kind of going everywhere. Now once you let that dry, don't forget to wipe off your tip. Now once you let that dry and cool down, go ahead and move the heat shrink over your joints, and you can use a heat gun, which I should have done, but a lighter works well too. Don't forget to twist the leads back after they have cooled down a little bit. Now we'll go ahead and grab our UV LED, and remember the LED is going to be the exact same. The longer of the two prongs is where your positive wire goes, or the red wire, and then the shorter one is where the negative is going to go, or the negative wire. But in this case, we're actually going to put our 270 ohm resistor on the negative leg of the LED. Just kind of twist it around like that, and go ahead and throw some solder on it. And after you do that, you will have a little tiny kind of leg sticking off of it, and you can just kind of cut that off with a side cutters. I actually should have moved the resistor up more closer to the LED, but this actually kind of worked out in the configuration that I was going to use it for a little bit better anyways this way. Like I said, it is going to go into that back plate, and the point is it's going to be pointed at just the proper angle to where it will go up and hit, you know, the front, that front plate, and make it fluoresce, hopefully, in theory. So kind of same thing. Hook up your negative to the side that has the resistor, and then your positive to the other side that does not have the resistor. And then just a simple twist and throw some solder on it. And then after making your solder connection, go ahead and secure that heat shrink to where it is covering the joint. Now everything is done as far as our connections. There's just one thing, and that's that little bit of the ground sticking out on the LED. Liquid tape is going to clear that right up. And actually, CB Getty recommends that if you don't use an LED to just kind of throw some liquid tape on it. But now pretty much we are all set, and all we have to do is just construct everything. And this is actually the easiest and funnest part. So the smaller of the two holes, the one on the right, if you're looking at it from the back, is where the amplifier potentiometer is going to be. Just start by kind of stuffing everything in there, but make sure to remove the nut and the washer before you go sticking it through the hole, or it's very hard to get it through there. What I did was I kind of just held it with one hand, kind of going through the tweeter hole, and with the other hand I was able to grab the washer and the nut and put it back on there. And after that, just kind of gave it a little bit of a tightening with just a pair of pliers. And then after that, I could kind of go on and do the same thing with the jack. And as you can see, it's actually looking pretty good. And yeah, like I said, same thing, kind of follow through with the jack. That one was a little bit harder, but we eventually got it. Again, just hold it with one hand and then put the washer and then the nut on, and then give it a good tighten. So that's pretty much as far as exterior, other than the front plate, that's it. Now we're going to go ahead and install the back plate. And the back plate is going to do three things. It's going to cover the hole in the back where the crossover was. It's going to hold the LED, but another thing that it really came in handy for, which was kind of an afterthought, was wire management. After I went ahead and screwed it down, and I kind of was looking, I was like, oh man, that's perfect. And you'll see in a shot here in a second, I actually kind of tucked the wires all up under that plate in the back, and that really kind of helped out the overall look of it. And we're not done with that back plate. We're going to do a lot more with it in the next video. I'm going to show you how to actually get that cracked finish like the front plate has. So now all we have to do is cut up some Velcro, and this is what I usually use to hold the 9-volt batteries in these small guitar amplifiers. I just find it works really well. When the 9-volt kind of dies out, just grab another piece of Velcro and you know, use it from there on out, and I haven't had a problem with them since. Now all we have to do is hook up our speaker, and I think we're just about good from here. Now the speaker goes in. It's starting to look really good already. Now all that's left is put on the front plate, and voila. So here it is, the first to my knowledge, Realistic Minimus 7 guitar amplifier. I was talking about is it kind of oscillated there for a second, and I know why it did that, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But for now, so you may have noticed that there's no gain control on here. Sorry. So you may have noticed that there's no gain control on here, and that's kind of my fault. This pre-made amplifier that I actually ordered from CB Giddy, it does have a potentiometer or a knob to actually change the tone, or, well, the gain, actually. But they do make another one that's about $4 more that actually has a panel-mounted gain switch knob. This one actually has one too. It's that little tiny blue thing on the back of the board. Let's go ahead, let's turn it up, let's turn the gain up high, and let's hear what this thing sounds like when it starts to break up and starts to get a more crunchy, distorted sound. All right, now let's turn the mid-range up a little bit. More of what I'm talking about. You can see it in the speaker. That's typically not good. Okay, so now here's the thing. I set up and designed this build basically so you can follow along at home with as minimal parts as possible to, complete it. So I'm not going to play this with the gain all the way up anymore because there is a major flaw in that board. It's not really a problem with the board, and it's something that can be fixed. We're going to go ahead and we're going to fix that problem in the next video. And in that video, I'm also going to show you how to achieve this cool cracked kind of paint finish on any type of plexiglass or any type of surface, really. So pretty much the next video is going to be an upgrade to this. Then we're going to do another video where I'm going to make a completely new circuit from scratch, and we're going to go ahead and put it in the Realistic Minimus 7, because honestly, with the gain turned down on this thing, as far as the full clean tone, it is very, very nice for its size and for what I paid to make it. And it's just kind of cool, something that I built. Very, very inspired by the rad 80s. These things kind of conquered the 80s. But please, if you made it this far, why not consider subscribing? And then you will be informed for when the next 2 videos come out on this, and I got a couple more videos coming out. But in the meantime, if you guys are into car audio, check out one of the videos up there. And if you guys are into home audio and stuff like that, vintage speakers, stuff like this, you can check out some of my other videos in a playlist that I have up here, or they will be reversed, as always.